let's start a course teaching the pickup artist community, which is growing because of Neil Strauss's book. And I Googled pickup artist magic tricks and nothing existed. Taking Tim's advice, I created a sales page for a product that didn't exist, pre-sold it through $600 at Google AdWords, and started to build a list. I was like, crap, we've got something here.
Welcome to the Paid to Create podcast, where we dig into the secret strategies of successful creators making a lucrative living. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
I just have to tell you about Kartra, the marketing platform that has seriously transformed my business. You know how running a business can be insanely time consuming, right? Well, Kartra has been a game changer for me. It's honestly like having an entire marketing team in my pocket. And what I love most is that it automates all the tedious daily tasks for me, from marketing to sales to even customer experience. I can't believe how much time and energy I've saved since I started using it. And get this. With Kartra, I can create websites, funnels, courses, membership sites, email campaigns, calendars, surveys, you name it. It's made managing my business so much simpler and more affordable. Honestly, I can't recommend Kartra enough. If you're curious, head to paidtocreatepodcast.com/Kartra to start your trial. Trust me, you won't regret it. Welcome everybody to the Paid to Create podcast. I'm AJ Roberts. Alongside me as always is Sarah Jenkins, and our guest today is Brad Costanzo.
Great to have you.
Glad you're here, Brad. Brad's the founder of Costanzo Marketing Group, Costanzo Capital, and my favorite is the host of Bacon Wrap Business Podcast, where he uncovers what's working now with some of the top business experts in the world. I've been a guest. It's been a pleasure, and glad to have you on our podcast today.
Good to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks
man.
for having me, guys.
So your journey is interesting. You started out in the financial advisory world and ventured into info marketing. Maybe you can share that journey, because I think like for a lot of people, that's the transition is the big part. Like when you realize like I'm not cut out for employment, right? I'm going to go do my own thing.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was a financial advisor with Prudential Securities for several years, and then kind of migrated over into financial analyst and consultant at the company. So I was working with financial advisors, helping them grow their business internally just through the various tools, very corporate. And then in 2008, 2007, the great financial crisis started to rear its head, and it was like, wow, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up in this industry, because I was a very bonus and commission based as well. So it just so happened that the month that I got laid off, so I had a transition forced on me, which was good because it was going to be hard to just switch over to this. But I had read the 4-Hour Work Week the same month that I got laid off, and I was in a neuro-linguistic programming workshop class for it was like a year-long program, and every month we'd go there. So several of the classmates, we became good friends. We all read the book together, and we were like, okay, let's create a mastermind. Let's brainstorm about this. Let's create an online business. And none of us had any idea what to do. But then so we created two businesses, or at least I got involved with two businesses out of that. Two partners and I started a software company called Pig Tones, which stood for politically incorrect GPS tones.
Oh, no.
So at the time, we figured out how to hack into Garmin and TomTom's machines and change the voices on there. So we hired a guy on like freelancer.com or whatever to figure out how to do this. And he goes, yeah, this is all you have to do is reread these words, et cetera. And then here's how it compiles them back together. So then we got really drunk and high one day around Dale's kitchen table, and we came up with ideas for politically incorrect GPS tones.
It's not a family show. It's fine.
Yeah. But it was what do you call them? It was everything from celebrity impersonated voices to characters. So we had we would have been canceled today because we took every racial stereotype and went off the rails. But everybody was.
Did you do Morgan Freeman?
We did have a Morgan Freeman. Yeah,
of course.
We had Stewie,
Morgan Freeman.
We had Stewie from The Family Guy. We had all these other things, but then we had a guy with like a really thick Mexican accent called Wrong Juan.
Oh no!
And then so he was my favorite though because he was hilarious, and it wasn't actually racist stuff, but it was like just the accent stereotypes. But it was like when instead of going down the street and if you make a wrong turn, the old Garmin would say recalculating. So this one would say, yo, Holmes, you must have had too much tequila because you're lost. Now I got to get the map back out again. So it was just fun, right? And so we did that. Now, I mainly funded that and did ideas. My other partners ran it. The other one that I did with my friend TV, we had also read Neil Strauss's book, The Game, right, by Neil Strauss. And in that book, they talked about using magic tricks, to pick up girls, but they never talked taught the magic tricks.
I like magic tricks.
Good.
It
Well,
would
I
work.
knew a handful of bar tricks at the time. And it just so happened, like I was never part of the pickup artist community or whatever, but I just happened to know about a dozen bar tricks, not cards or whatever. And when I was single and I did them with girls when I was flirting, it did tend to work. So I remember when I was reading the book, I was like, oh, I'll be damned. Like I used to kind of do that too. So my buddy TV and I were like, what info product do we do? Like, I don't know. Here I was 32 years old, like financial advisor. Like, well, I'm out of work now. Let's start a course teaching the pickup artist community, which is growing because of Neil Strauss's book, right? So we tapped into this slipstream of people who are reading the book, New York Times bestselling author. And I Googled pickup artist magic tricks and nothing existed. So we looked at each other. I was like, oh, maybe we should do that. So taking Tim's advice, I created a sales page for a product that didn't exist. And I like just pre-sold it through $600 at Google AdWords on like pickup artist magic and started to build a list. I was like, crap, we've got something here. So now let's create it. Started off as an ebook and then, standing in front of my fireplace with a flip camera. And it was,
Definitely.
right? The flip camera, remember that?
Yes.
So then, and I remember thinking, I remember saying, all right, guys, so imagine I'm in a bar and imagine I'm talking to a girl. And now imagine the girl says this and I'm saying that and then I do this. I'm going to show you the trick, blah, blah, blah. And here's what I would say after. So I do the trick and it'd be kind of cool. And then I say, now I'm going to show you how to do it. But the entire thing was imagine
Yeah.
that
Well,
I've got
I mean, they were
beautiful
imagining
woman.
having a girlfriend. Like, they're already in an imaginary world,
Yeah.
right? They're going to go out and do these tricks. Yeah, right.
Exactly. So I compiled this thing. It was the most ghetto looking info product ever. But I remember June 2nd, 2008, had our first sale, Sebastien Rotier out of France. Remember my first online sale, right?
International.
Wow.
Internet. I called my mom, I'm multinational. So, and at the time, I didn't have a job. So I had a little bit of a severance and I had some savings. So I was just living on that. Probably took 6 months before I pulled $1,500 out of the business.
Hey, you pulled 4-hour work week on purpose.
Yeah. And it was interesting. 4-hour work week has inspired a lot of people, but it also gets a bad rap from a lot of people saying, oh, it's bullcrap. Nobody works 4 hours a week. I never read the book. When I read the book, it inspired me more than any other book, but it was never, how can I only work 4 hours a week or how can I get rich on the internet? Mine was, how do I never put my resume together and have to go schlep around and get somebody else to bless me as worthy of a paycheck? So what that allowed me to do is it allowed me to, my wins were, okay, I wrote my first sales copy. I created my first sales page in WordPress using HTML. Holy crap, that was hard. Things like Kartra didn't exist, right? How do I, and I created my first opt-in. I got my first sale. All of those little micro milestones were my big wins, and I would celebrate these wins. So that allowed me to keep going because it was win after win. I wasn't focused on the prize. I was focused on the process. And then so grew both of those businesses. Unfortunately, Pigtones, we had a fun little
Did you
rise.
get caught?
Well,
We had so many cease and desist.
I was going to say, interesting thing with Pigtones, it's kind of a blessing that it didn't work because Garmin and TomTom didn't work,
Yeah.
right? Like
Because of
Apple came
iPhone.
along and just crushed it.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, on one side, you've got a trend that's growing
Yeah.
thanks to Neil Strauss
Yeah.
and obviously it, like Frank Kern brought it to the online marketing world. Like, hey, everybody should read this book. It's just, and then on the
We all
flip
did.
side of that, you've got, a system that was, what is those Blu-ray DVDs
Yeah.
essentially, right? Like they were the
And this
same
was 2008,
thing.
right? So iPhone had, I think, come out in maybe 2006 or whatever. And I remember it was maybe a year later. I wasn't even using my Garmin. I was using my iPhone. I was like, oh, this isn't good. And we got so many cease and desist orders from like Time Warner and all these people because we were impersonating
voices.
celebrity voices. But so that ended up just kind of fizzling out. And the other business did actually fairly well for what it was. And this was my first online product. My best year was like $500,000. And then it started to fizzle and I sold it. Now, I was the face of the product, although fortunately I used a pen name. And I was able to sell it to this couple of investors out of Australia.
What was your pen name?
Brad Jackson.
I was going to ask too.
So it was just Brad Jackson. And
So, someone's going to write it and be like, that's who I learned my magic tricks from.
funny enough.
I was hoping it was wildly inappropriate, but it's not.
Well, and funny enough, so I sold that business in 2012, and within a year, it was completely like they ran it into the ground. But that was actually a fun win to know that I took an info product that I created with my face on it, et cetera, but I was able to actually sell that. Now, I didn't get rich off of it. It wasn't retirement money, but that was fun. That was the end of 2012. a couple months ago, I was at a conference in Vegas, Perry's conference, and I got a guy come up to me from Asia. He's like, Puma Skills? Brad Jackson? He goes, oh my God, I was one of your customers. And I did all this other stuff and I had a dating product over in Asia, but you were a big inspiration. I was like, holy crap. And it just so happened.
So you're huge in Asia is what you're saying.
Huge in Asia, right? Not too hard. Also, it was funny. My wife is Brazilian and we were in Brazil back in, I don't know, 2010 or 11. And I sent an email to my list saying, hey, I'm down here in Recife, Brazil, and I'm doing XYZ. But I don't know, go buy this affiliate product. And some guy writes me back, this guy Guto writes me back. He goes, hey Brad, I'm in Recife too. You're in my hometown. I'm a musician at this bar. I'd love to show you around. And I looked him up on Facebook. He looked totally normal and cool.
Not a murderer.
I was like, yeah, exactly. I was like, oh,
Not weird at all.
I was like, yeah.
Got more than 4 friends.
Yeah. He goes, let's come hang out. So he came and picked me up and we got in the car with my wife, who's my girlfriend at the time. And I'm in the front. She's in the back. I'm in the front with Guto. And we're pulling out, and he goes, man, I can't believe I'm hanging out with Brad Jackson. So I look back at my wife. I'm in her home country, and her eyes are rolling to the back of her head like, I'm never going to hear the end of this. And that was 13 years ago, and
I'm
you're
there 007, man. Yeah. You're there 007.
So anyway, that was kind of like how I got started in that space, just jumping in and using it, using it as a marketing laboratory. And that's the advice I give to anybody kind of new to creating or online marketing is don't go for the win. Just go for it's a laboratory. Just learn. If you can earn, that's awesome. But if you can learn, that's really the first step. And that's where I have to remind myself when I start new things today. I have to get back into that beginner's mindset of just how can I learn something. But yeah, and then the other part of the story is that over the past 10 years, I've been consulting. I've had some startups, some have worked, some have failed, but I've been consulting and investing, and that's what brings me to today.
Yeah, it's done quite a lot. It's really interesting. Like you mentioned, and going through that whole process of building something, selling something. What made you not necessarily want to do that again, but like help others on that journey?
So I realized how much effort it takes. This is unlike what everybody says. It's not the easy money, right? It's easy money to convince people that it's easy money, but there's a lot of work.
Well, like when they say laptop lifestyle and then they show them on the beach on the laptop, people miss that they're still on their laptop.
Yes.
Like they're not on the beach in the water surfing. They're on the beach with their laptop working.
And if it's a guy, his wife is over there screaming that you can't hear him, like, honey, come hang out with me. Like, I got work to do.
The beach is an ideal place for a laptop. Sand and water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, so it was kind of, I didn't have an immediate idea of something I wanted to do. I didn't just want to be, although I had the skills to teach online marketing, I just didn't want, I was like, it's so crowded. I don't have anything new to add. I'm just borrowing what everybody else is, saying anyway. So I was like, well, I've gathered a lot of strategies and tactics throughout the time. So I just went to some of my colleagues and friends in the business and I just looked for opportunities to help them. One of my first clients was somebody I think we all know, Drew Canoli. Mm-hmm. And I was friends with him. He had a growing fitness brand. And I just said, hey, I've got a couple ideas, blah, blah, blah. Here's like a new profit center. And he's like, oh, you want to run with that? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Just split the revenue with me. And he said, sure. So that worked out really well. And then he introduced me to some other people that he knew. And I just started growing a consulting business because it was a lot easier than having to build everything from scratch and manage it myself. I could kind of be a commercenary, if you would.
Well, you said something interesting. I think this is something, we've mentioned this on the show before, but for creators, a lot of times they think they have to be in the business, like their own business. And now more than ever, like there is companies that you can like go into either as a consultant or a freelance or as an advisor or even as an employee. Like there's nothing wrong with that, where you actually do get to do what your brilliance is, what your skill is, what your magic is, and inside another organization. And sometimes you're more valuable there. You can make more money that way, right? Because like take if you're a copywriter and you're working for yourself. Well, how much money do you have to spend on traffic, right? Because essentially all your customers are bought, right? And so it's time or money. One of those two you're trading. And most copywriters aren't getting on camera, shooting videos. Like they're writing stuff. So they have to write ads. Well, if they can only spend $1,000 a day, their profits are only going to be a certain amount. Whereas if they go into a big company that's spending $100,000 a day, and they're getting a percentage of that, they could end up making more money than they could currently on their own. So you mentioned the learning experience and things like that. There's so many benefits sometimes to saying like, yeah, okay, I'm a creative and I'm really good at this skill, but there's nothing wrong with taking that skill into other people's company. And so you might have done it because it was like less work as a whole, but it also allowed you and your unique genius to really focus on what you did best.
Absolutely. And what I know, I've been really good at knowing what I'm bad at. Like, I'm not a good one who runs the business. I'm not administrative. I hate that stuff. Like everything from the finance, even though I have a finance background, I hate, like the corporate finance. I hate.
You're a true creative.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. True creative. And and I'm too ADD, and I know my weaknesses, and as opposed to just trying to get better at that, I became an entrepreneur in residence, right? So, which is a term that I didn't invent, but I love it. That is where it's kind of like, and there's a lot of big companies who will do this. They'll hire entrepreneurs to come in and help spearhead projects. They don't necessarily put them in a role. They give them a project, and they say, we need to get this off the ground. Here's our budget. There was I follow this one guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's the one where I learned this concept of entrepreneur in residence. I think he went to work for Coors or Miller, and they were launching some kind of another brand in-house for something else. So they just said, but we have a bunch of MBAs. We have a bunch of corporate types. We need an entrepreneur, but we're going to give you all the resources and let you build out your team, et cetera. And then he'd build out entire profit centers inside there, get paid very well, sometimes stock or whatever. And I was like, ooh, I actually like that. So I've been doing that in my consulting. So I don't work with a lot of clients. I'll typically, like some people say, oh, like a fractional CMO. I think of it as an entrepreneur in residence because also a CMO is somebody who's very process oriented, and I'm very project oriented, right? Yeah. So I like to get things off the ground and get them launched and get them going. But like, I like to make the babies.
Give me the next thing. Yeah.
I don't like to raise the babies.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, like the other interesting thing is that in reality, like it's a different skill set to be able to run stuff. And we've had this conversation. It's like, I'm a leader, I'm not a manager, right? And you would think, you're good with people. You inspire people, you motivate people, you'll be great at managing people.
That's a leader.
Like, a manager is someone who gets on people like every day and is like, I don't have time every day to get on you. Like I'm on to the next big thing. Like I can't have 10 phone calls today just to make sure you're doing your work. So like, that's a very interesting piece as well. But I think that it takes a lot of people time to figure that out, right? And you've done all of the roles, so you're able to see like, well, which one am I good at? Which one am I not good at? And you've kind of done a lot of those different roles too to like figure out your strengths and weaknesses.
Your whole story, like you started at the beginning, we got the website HTML, we learned sales copy, we put together, I'm like, yep. When we all started at the beginning, we learned how business works and what we're good at and what we're not. Yeah.
Become an accidental expert at a lot of things, but a big time expert in knowing what I'm not good at. I still don't even know what I'm great at. Yeah. Like other people will tell me what I'm great at. I don't feel like I'm great at a lot of stuff. I don't know if it's just like internal.
Bar check.
Well, it's so easy. That's the thing. The stuff you're really great at is the stuff that you're in flow with.
Yes.
That's easy to you. Therefore, you devalue it, right? And I used to remember when I was doing seminars all over the world, I'd get up and for 2 days I would speak. I never had a single note.
I'm like that too.
Right? But to me, that was just something I was doing. Like it wasn't this magical. Can't everybody do this? Yeah, like I was just teaching something I knew, and like and like people saw this the fact 2 days on like in front of an audience, like do it like without planning, and I'd be like, yeah. But it's like those are the things, and because of that, you overlook that because it's like you're like. Oftentimes those are things that you've probably been told you can't get paid for. Yeah. Like I remember back when I was growing up, people say you can't get paid for ideas. Yes, you can. You can get paid a crap load of money. Trust me, companies pay a fortune to agencies to come up with ad ideas and videos and all those different things. So now they can't monetize those ideas without execution, but that doesn't have to be you. You just
brought up something. I've actually done some videos and content on this as well because I hate that metaphor, just that phrase that like ideas are worthless without execution. Well, that's like saying children are worthless until they become grown, productive members of society. They just need structure and discipline and nurturing in order to go. But that's what it's that pure potential. Like that's where ideas come from because it's also like and I'll get back to this idea of structure and discipline of ideas, but Keith Cunningham, great author, wrote The Road Less Stupid. He's got a great quote that says, "There's nothing worse than running enthusiastically in the wrong direction." Right? So if you can execute a bunch, truth is execution is a commodity. Strategy, and I put ideas under strategy. Strategy and idea is the premium. Now, you do need both, but I can go to Upwork or Fiverr and get execution of a lot of stuff. Depending on how much I pay, it's going to be whatever. But if they're executing on the wrong things, that's the worst thing you can do. But the people who get paid the most are the ones with the best ideas, the best strategy, who can then get them into execution. And then what I was talking about with structure and nurturing of ideas, like I've got a whole process that I follow that I learned. I was mentioning this NLP class that I took years ago, and I discovered this process that Walt Disney used when he was building his business. And he realized that whenever we're coming up with a creative concept or business idea, there's always 3 voices that are happening. And it's either with us or in our group. Like, have you ever had a great idea and you went to somebody, maybe you went to AJ, and you're like, AJ, check this out. I got this great idea. Here's what we're going to do. Blah, 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 blah. What's the first thing somebody, I don't know if AJ does, but somebody might say?
What about?
Or, yeah.
I start thinking beyond the idea and going like, what did you think about this?
Yeah. Or but a lot of times we hear, well, this is why it won't work.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the critic.
Yeah.
It's the party people.
Yeah,
Like,
AJ. Can't say that's why it won't work.
and we do this to ourselves too. We may have this great idea and then immediately like, oh my God, I'm going to create this product about X, Y, like picking up girls with magic tricks. And okay, here's how I can do it. Oh, but that won't work because of this, blah, blah, blah. And then what happens is when that critic comes in, who's no fun, we entrepreneurs who need to be delusionally optimistic to survive anyway, one of 2 things will happen. We'll either shut the critic up, give him the Heisman stiff arm and just say, shut up, I'll figure it out when I get there. Those problems, I'll figure it out, because that's what we do. And then we run off half-cocked and go, oh crap, I should have listened because that critic had a good point.
But you're already on the way down the hill.
Yeah.
So that's the key, right? Like with that critic, even though you realize like, oh shit, maybe I should have been more prepared or something like that, you're already on the way down the hill. So the whole concept of building the parachute on the way down, that's where it comes from. It's like you're already in motion. Yeah. You can't stop. You have like, oh, we didn't think about customer support. Like we need someone to answer tickets. Well, the fact you need customer support is a progress, right? Versus go on what the other critic, obviously.
Absolutely. Well, and then the other one, but the other times, then you listen to the critic too much. And oftentimes the one we listen to more than anybody is the one in our head. And then what we have is what I call idea abortion, right? We just get rid of it before it's actually born because we're like, it's going to be too hard. So going back to Walt. So Walt realized this early in the day. He called these 3, I don't know if they're voices, whatever, but the dreamer, the realist, and the critic. And in his office, at his headquarters, back in like the 30s, it was rumored that he had 3 different rooms, and one was the dreamer's office, and that's where you can imagine something really colorful, et cetera. And then you go to another one, the realist, storyboards everywhere, and then the critic's office. I imagine it was dull and drab. So he realized that you want to have different spaces for this because the energy of that space is important. But the rules were very simple. When you're dreaming, just dream. Don't plan and don't critique. Just paint the picture of what would be amazing regardless of how it happens. And then when you take that dream and it's fairly well formed, you take it to the realist office and you storyboard it out. What has to happen in order to get from A to B given what we know? Only rules, don't add to the dream and don't critique it. Because then everybody all at once, and this is kind of important, goes to the critic's office, and the critic's job is not to shoot it down. It's just to find the roadblocks and the hurdles and the things that you're overlooking, from the opportunity costs to the real costs to everything else. And the most important part of that is you're not supposed to solve the challenges that the critic brings up in the critic's office. Yeah. That's the wrong mindset. Just list them and let everybody be open. Now, and then you keep on going back and forth and around round and round the merry-go-round until you finally go back to the critic, and the critic says, I don't know. Looks good. Looks like you've answered all my things. Now that's rocket fuel right there. How to use this in real life. So with your team, so if we're working together, I've just told you this simple framework. Dream, plan, critique, don't do 2 things at once, okay? Now, we've got an idea. We're going to launch something. I might say, guys, step into the dreamer's office for me. And that what it does is it tells you what mindset you need to be in, but it also reminds you that, okay, when I come up with, you're going to sit on it, you're going to write it down, you're going to come back to it later.
We call that the parking lot.
Yes,
Parking lot.
we park
Yeah.
in.
Anything that gets you off track is like parking lot, no
Yep.
conversation,
Bingo.
no exploration,
Yeah, and
nothing.
you get and the thing is, some of the most critical people can be some of the most creative because they're imagining all the stuff that can go wrong. So in order to be a critic, you have to have a good imagination. So now this gives them the
yeah, it's more.
permission.
You're more of a like bringing it to reality
Yeah.
of like this is what's actually going to happen. You know, like when someone says, "Oh, I want to do a webinar," and you're okay, you got to write the webinar
Yeah.
first, and then they're like, "Oh, I was going to do it next Tuesday." You're like, "Well, you can,
Bingo.
but like it's a
Not all of
like,
us can just spit cuff for hours, AJ.
No, but what I'm saying is, like production time. People really underestimate the time it takes to do things.
Yeah.
Because they abandon their ideas. Most entrepreneurs move forward like the first critic, and then they're like, "What do I do?"
Yeah.
But because they never stepped into a critic's office and like went through all of that stuff, like they haven't thought about those things, and those things creep up. And
Exactly. And it doesn't take a lot to go through those. Like to me, it's one of my favorite things to do because it can be done very quickly. Like I'll do it for myself. If I'm planning something, I like to go for a walk on the beach. Then I get on my whiteboard at home and then I'll sit on my couch and critique it. Always try to do it in different spaces. But then once more, if I'm working with a client, I let them know the framework. And then whenever we're coming up with something, I let them know where I'm at so they know where they need to be. And then they know they can do this as well to me. So it's one of the most structured, effective ways to nurture ideas so they can get to execution without either being, abandoned too early or run off half-cocked and going, oh, well, wow, we didn't look at that. Do you remember when I started my coffee business?
yeah.
Okay, so I had this coffee brand. I don't know if you knew about this, called Stiletto Coffee.
I did know about it.
Cool. So we had this cool brand.
It was from Brazil, right? The coffee, like it was sent to you with your wife.
Yeah, and it was a very female-oriented brand. All like the house blend was called Little Black Dress, and
Love
then
it.
the Elevation Roast, and the we had some really cool. It was all about. There was nothing special about it was good coffee, but it was all the brand. I was like, we both fell in love with this concept for the brand, and then I knew how to create an e-commerce business, and I remember thinking, I'll figure out the unit economics once we get it up. And then I got into the business and I was like, okay, I'm gonna sell 1 million bags to make any money. Like this is the economics just weren't good, especially starting with no audience to buy this damn coffee. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I neglected that. I remember neglecting that. I was like, I figured out, I got so in love with my idea that I didn't take it to the critic. And
I think so many people can relate to that because there is so many people that like start their business and they're pricing for their products or their services. In the beginning, people are like, they hire them and they do a great job and they don't realize their quick growth is because of how cheap they are.
Yes.
Like they'll charge $5,000 for like this full-on video production, and then when they realize like to take on 3 more clients, I need another video editor that's going to cost me $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
Like they start, and we can only do one of these. Wait a minute, like now I'm break even or I'm losing money.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, so I love that concept. Do you separate, you mentioned spaces as a big thing, like having a different space. And I've heard that before about productivity.
Yeah.
Never in this sense, but in that concept. Do you also separate by like days? So like you don't have,
I've tried.
you don't blend it in one
I've
day?
tried, doesn't work. Like I'm not disciplined enough. It's kind of like
This is kind of a timer thing.
yeah. I just like, and I've literally tried to structure it like this. I never make it past 2 weeks to say, for example, Monday is strategy. Tuesday is busy work. Wednesday is calls and connections. Thursday is creation. And it never works. Like it's good in theory for me, but I just don't have enough discipline. And then things get thrown at me and I'm like, okay, I don't know what. Or I've just...
Yeah, what if you get creative on Wednesday? What if you've got busy work on Monday?
Right. So I have tried to do blocking my days a little bit more individually to where if I have creative work to do, I try to get that done in the morning when I'm the most creative, and then the busy work like in the middle of the afternoon, like at the 3 o'clock slump or whatever. I've tried to do that, but I'm not good at time and energy
You are
management.
truly ADD.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah. Do you compartmentalize?
Try.
Just curious.
Yeah, I'm not effective at that. Like that is a
Strategy to overcome some of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's just one of my weaknesses is I just kind of run and gun until I can't go anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's most entrepreneurs, right? And you put parameters around you. Really, what it comes down to is just discipline. But the problem is you never know where your energy systems are, right? Did you get enough sleep? Did you do this? Did you do that? And so a day that's planned to be creative, the night before, maybe you and your wife go on a date night, and then you say, oh, let's go dancing. Like, you're having a great time. Let's go dancing, and then you get to bed later than normal. But you know, it's a very important thing you did, but then the next day you want to get up a little later, so maybe your morning routine is different. So I've struggled with the same thing.
I don't know where my head's going to be at when I do it, and if I'm in the mood, I kind of go where the mood strikes me. I would probably be 10 times more successful in my life if I had a little bit.
Harness it.
Maybe. Right?
I mean,
or maybe not.
One was the observation I've made at being around so many different people is when you look at it, none of them follow the same routine. So there's no, when it comes to like the best productivity system, there's no one thing that you know, usually you see a lot of patterns, like everybody gets up at 5 a.m. Well, that's not true. Like I know very successful people that don't get up till like the afternoon. And I'm going, but they're night people and that's their life. You know, like think of a comic. Right? A comic's not going to be up early in the morning unless they have to do a radio bit, but they're up at a club, you know, like every night on the road, whatever they're doing. Like, so it's just, and then that's when they have to perform. You have to be at their very best at 10 p.m. at night. Like, imagine, I couldn't do that. I'm a sleeper. Right?
You know, and it's funny, like years ago, I don't know if he still sells this, but Perry Marshall had put together this thing called the Marketing DNA quiz. Have you guys ever taken this?
Perry Marshall.
Never taken it. I saw it back in the day.
Super cool. When we're offline, I'll show you mine. But it does a really good job. It's personality profile, but it's really for marketers too. And like one of the things it'll say is like, I forget what it is, like sales improviser. It's like, you are like MacGyver. You never script things ahead of time. You don't need a long runway. People wonder how you're able to pull a rabbit out of your hat, but you need people to follow around and like pick up your mess behind you. You have the ability to give people like, you know, you'll inspire them, but give them whiplash. Go like, what the hell? So it shows both sides, but then it'll say, these are the parts of like marketing businesses that you should pursue. This is what you should avoid. This is how this is your work mode, et cetera, but you're an improviser.
I love things like that. I've done a few.
Yeah, it's probably marketingdna.com or something like that, if he still sells it. But it was a really interesting thing because it allowed me to see my superpowers, but then all the stuff that, you know, like I don't like spreadsheets. I have to use them and stuff, but I hate operations.
Those are such important things to know. Roger Hamilton has the wealth dynamics and talent dynamics, but it's so important to know what your primary personality is, right? Like, are you a star? Are you a creator? Are you a connector? You know, like, how do you operate? Like, because it doesn't mean you can't do the other thing, but go back to what you were saying, like what you're best at. It like you start to realize, oh, I am better when I just do this thing. You don't always get to just do that thing, but I love all of those different things.
Like the Millionaire, I think it's Millionaire Master Plan is one of my favorite books next to the 4 Hour Workweek. It just had so many. Have you guys both read it? Or it just had so many useful things, like from the personality test in the beginning to these are the phases out of the lighthouse, and I'm like, that's kind of cool because I found mine, and it is funny. Every one of my big successes, if I tie them back to his prescription in that book, I was like, oh yeah, whenever I did those things, it happened to work out well, even if I didn't do those intentionally.
Now that's interesting, thinking about building the businesses. You're going into multiple businesses. And one of the things I've noticed is that people join coaching programs and masterminds, or even purchase books and courses. And that purchase is not relevant to where they are right now. So with advising so many different businesses and being involved with different niches and industries, have you found that there's similarities, or is it more like where are they right now and what's the next step? And most of the time they can't see the next step. They're looking too far ahead, or they're not. You know, is that what you noticed?
Yeah, I see that quite a bit. And it's a lot of people are especially, and I do this too, but like learning things for just in case as opposed to just in time learning. And like, I love learning just in case learning, but then I look back and I'm like, I'm never going to use this shit. Maybe I will. But I feel that most business owners are too, and I put myself in there too, as well, but it's like you got to focus on what's right ahead of you, but you're trying to focus on what's way out here, but then there's such a big gap in between what's right here and what's way out there. But that middle of the gap is where most of the stuff happens, because the stuff that's right in front of you, oftentimes you can hire it done, you can outsource it, you can just get it done. The stuff way out here is a lot harder to get done. It's like that, what's your North Star? I want to 10X, I want to do whatever. But it's all the stuff that happens in that's kind of like, to me, like a blind spot, because it's it's too far out.
It's unknown, but it's not your goals.
Yeah, exactly. And there's and right now
Frodo had the ring. There's the mountain.
Yeah, what happens in between?
Right.
Right. And right now I think we're in a really interesting space with the advent of all of the AI tools, and it's thrown a lot of planning into the I don't think that most businesses, especially probably most of the businesses that are probably listening or watching this show, can feasibly plan anything past 24 months. Mm-hmm. Like I think everything after that is a guess and a hope and a prayer, because things could be either 10 times better and easier or 10 times worse. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, here in May of 2023, we just don't know. So it's causing a lot for everybody. It's like, I don't know. Part of this is really cool. Part of it's not, but it's forcing us to look a little bit past. To me, it's forcing me to look in that blind spot zone, like in the middle, because I'm going, okay, I got to get this stuff done now that I'm working on, but a couple steps ahead, I got to plan for that. I don't even know 5-10 years down the road. Like those don't exist anymore to me. Yeah. If you're in an expertise business, if you're in a knowledge business, outside of like manual labor,
you never know though.
Don't know. Yeah.
That's so funny you say that. Every 2 years, every 24 months, my life changes significantly. Yeah. And someone's like, what's your 5-year plan? I'm like, I have no idea, but I have a 2-year plan.
To hopefully be
and
alive.
I have a 10-year plan. I don't have the 5 years. I have no idea what the next 2 years are going to bring.
Yeah.
But I know bigger where 10 years I want to be. But yeah, that 5-year doesn't make sense to me anymore.
No.
Especially
and I know
COVID just took 3 years of our lives.
Right. And I know like 10 years in general how I want my life to be. Mm-hmm. But as far as my business, I don't know. I want to hopefully be making really good money and doing something I still love with people that I like working with. But beyond that, I'm like, I don't know. Like,
well, this is the thing, right? You take a dream, and that dream is just boom. This is what I want to do, right? So, whether it's make $1 million or back when I was lifting break world records, right? You set that, and then it becomes a goal when you decide to do the work to get to that. Yeah. But the problem is that there is the timeline expectation is the unknown, right? And so I always say this, like you work with a lot of, industry experts that have a following. It's really easier to go into their business when they already have an audience and test a new offer and do this and do that. It's very difficult if you were working with someone who says, I want to build that, right?
Brand new.
So that person, it might take 10 years to get to the same goal as the other person comes to you with, just based on where they are right now. And I always look at it when you were in school. There was always that a-hole who literally didn't have to do anything and get A pluses. But then there was that person who studied their butt off to get an A+. Mm-hmm.
I got C's.
They both got,
I studied a lot.
But they both got the same grades, but the effort to get those grades were completely different. Yeah. And I think that's the part of being human that most people don't want to admit, is that we're all at different things in different areas, right? Some of us are ahead in this area, some of us are ahead in that area, some of us are way behind.
A-hole.
Like it's not equal. Like there never will be equal. There'll never be an even playing field. Everybody's starting. Just if you're born in America, it's very different than if you were born in, say, India, right? It's like your starting point of just where you're birthed, and you don't choose your pet. Well, depends on what you believe, right? Some people choose you. But what I mean is like you're not consciously making a decision of where you're going to come into this world, what economic level, what racial, like what your racial profile. You don't make those choices. You show up, and then you have to step in front. Where you can get to has been proven that anybody can do it. So unless your dream is beyond what anybody else has achieved ever, so there is the unknown, there is no path to follow. The majority of people's goals are literally just something someone else has achieved. Therefore, you can achieve it too. Yeah. Your path just might be different, and you have to be more realistic. Like everybody could play professional basketball. Not everybody will make the NBA. Right. There's enough leagues around the world.
Everybody played. It'd be a very boring sport.
Well, I mean, everybody that wanted to, right? Yeah. But they might have to move to a different country to be able to play professional ball. Right, yeah. But the options are there. And I think that's the big piece. You mentioned the unknown, that everybody can do the first bit. Everybody wants the end bit, but the middle bit is where the unknown is unknown because it's going to be different for every person.
Meghan Markle is a princess. I just missed a few steps.
I don't think she is anymore.
Oh, yeah, they gave that up.
I think they gave it all up.
It might be her fault.
She's the princess of LA now, right?
That's right. Yeah. Exactly.
She was not at the king's coronation. Harry was there. They had to come in through the back door, and they didn't get to stand with the family. I was like, that's an insult. I guess he was there. So, Well, you do a lot of work with Branditize,
Yeah.
and we mentioned the expert businesses. It's very interesting because a lot of people want to get into that, right? Especially if they're creative. They have an expertise and they want to put themselves out there. What are some lessons that you've learned working with because a lot of these brands are already established in order to kind of navigate today's world and the ever change, like even things like AI, we got the, potential rough times economically, but then you have AI at the same time that could, so what are some things and lessons you've seen with that right now?
So it's never been easier to be an expert, and it's never been harder to make money as an expert. I think because it's so crowded, right? It's like anytime the moat gets filled up with dirt and anybody can do it, it's great because the barriers are down. It just means that you're going to...
It's down for everybody.
Yeah, it's going to be a much more crowded market. And so because of that, you need to learn how to stand out in a crowded market and differentiate yourself. I've got a couple of clients who are worlds of different. One, they're both in the personal development, how to basically be more confident and achieve more niche. One guy has a tremendously public, well-known background, and it's like, oh, well, look what he's done. Like they don't even care what his system is because what he's accomplished. The other guy has studied, and he's helped some really interesting people, from Olympic athletes to this, that, and the other, but he's not a name. The things he's accomplished are not like
Notable.
His system is good, but there's a lot of good systems out there, right? So with somebody like him, we have to find ways to stand out in a crowded market. And I've got somewhere in my phone, I've got a list of all these things because I try to keep a list. But there's different ways to differentiate. So there's the ones, and this goes for, by the way, personality expert brands or physical brands. So this is the mass market stuff. You can be the cheapest. You can spend the most money. You can be Nike and just spend the most money on advertising. You can be the most expensive. You can be Gucci. You can have certain things that are hard to actually replicate. It's hard to be the most expensive and successful. It's hard to be the cheapest. It's hard to be spend the most advertising. You have to be maybe a major corporation to pull that off. But there's other things you can do. You can have so social proof is one, right? You can have you can have a big social media following that you've built or bought or something like that. So when people look at it, they go, oh, wow, 1 million people follow you. You must be good. But then you can have that social proof.
Make sure you get that blue check too.
Right, that blue check. For
$800 million in like 2 weeks they made.
Isn't that crazy?
I'm going to start selling blue checks at Katra.
I know, right?
If I had a Twitter with a brand, I'd buy it.
Yeah. Was that Twitter who made that much money or Facebook?
Instagram.
Instagram, yeah.
Oh, damn.
Crazy.
Twitter missed the trick.
Yeah. So, but then there's actual proof, demonstrable proof. Like, I can show you that if you do X, you will get Y, right? Then there is, and I may miss a couple of these things, but there is the unique mechanism, the big idea, that signature solution that you have that, the interesting thing about a unique selling proposition or unique mechanism, people get hung up. I used to get hung up on it. It has to be unique. Well, it's hard to be unique, right? You have the perception of uniqueness. Like P90X had muscle confusion. That wasn't unique. Just do a whole bunch of things, like do a whole bunch of exercises. That's what it was. But
CrossFit was the same when it came after,
Right. But then they just made it sound unique because they branded it as unique. And it's that branding it as something unique. It's like, oh, well, we're the only ones who have this. Domino's Pizza is famous for their USP, like 30 minutes or less or it's free. That's not unique. They're the only ones doing it, but anybody, Papa John's could have came out and said the same thing. Domino's didn't have a unique corner on that market. They could have said, 29 minutes, like 6-minute abs, not 7-minute abs. You guys get that reference?
Yeah.
No, you can't do 6
We're all
minute
from
abs.
fitness.
That's
It's no good.
Yeah. So then there's empathetic bonding, right? Like, can you really, through your copy, just make that person feel as though you get me more than anybody? Like, holy crap. I remember when this was done to me, 2009, May. I still remember because I've gone back to this email a lot. Rich Sheffrin sent out an email to his list. I just had, the day before I was at a conference, and I was a year into this business, and I told somebody, I was like, the problem is I feel like I'm playing entrepreneur. Like I'm just doing everything. I got a job. I'm just doing freaking everything, but I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not hiring people. I'm not doing this stuff. I feel like I'm playing at it. The next day, Rich sent in an email. The subject line was, "Are you playing," in quotes, "business, Brad?" Like, whoa. And I
read your
opened it up,
diary.
I read it, and I immediately bought his business growth systems without reading the sales page. I was like, whatever you're selling, I'm buying it because you hit the nail on the head. And in copy, oftentimes it's called a dominant emotional release. It's like boom, you got it. So if you can work on that, and if you don't have anything super unique, but you can work on this empathetic bonding, amazing.
That's actually, just pause you there.
Yeah.
That's actually why niche businesses tend to do better than generalized
Yeah.
businesses. So if you're just selling marketing systems, you're probably not going to do as well as someone who is selling real estate marketing systems. And the reason for that is just languaging.
Yeah.
Because like if you call them customers and they call them clients or like agents or like whatever the word, like, and you can create language that like bonds, like the
He gets
more-
me and my specific problems.
Exactly, because even though we all know you're not a unique snowflake and these solutions will work multi-industry around the world, the reality is individually, no matter what anybody tells us, we still think we're different. It only happens to us. And the amount of times I'll search something on Google like to see, and there's just like 5,000 pages on the specific thing that I was looking for. It's like, well, I'm not the first to have this thought, obviously.
Bingo.
But
But that's huge.
important. I think I just wanted to mention that because I think that that's when you look at, if you're struggling with that and you're trying to connect with people, you're probably talking too broad. You're probably missing the fact that you should only be talking to one person, and that one person, the more specific you can be down to exactly what they do as a profession,
Bingo.
the better you're going to do. And if that means taking the same product and just creating different marketing pieces to promote that same product, but to the different audiences, that's what that's what you should do.
Absolutely. And that's where, like, and the other thing about this empathetic bonding, which goes into the next one, which is just epiphany creation. Like if you can create an epiphany in somebody, like, oh my God, I never looked at it like that. That's a emotional react. It is an exciting emotional reaction, and memories and emotions are so perfectly tied together that if you can create an exciting revelation in somebody, they will forever associate you with that. So you own a place in their mind. Example, like,
Tony Robbins.
Tim Ferriss, when he was talking about what is the new rich or what is this, that, or the other. Like I remember when he said, one of the quotes in the book, one of my favorite quotes of the entire book was, people think they want to be millionaires, but what they really want to do is experience what they believe only millionaires can experience. And that happens to be like the ability to take trips and have time freedom and not
Fly private
and
or not stand in a line.
Right. But they and most people just want that freedom. They just want the ability to do that. But when he wrote it like that, to me, it was an epiphany. Most people think they want to be millionaires. They really just want to experience what they believe only millionaires can experience. And he went on to say, and I'm here to basically dismantle that belief that you, like, I think he was saying, look, if you generate $10,000 or $20,000 a month, but you're only working 4 hours a week on it, congratulations, you have probably more freedom and the things you want than a millionaire does.
Well, most online experts make money now. It's like they make about 30 grand a month.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks they're millionaires.
Right. Exactly. But that's an epiphany. And then a couple of the other ones that I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, our mutual friend Frank Kern really called it goodwill, which is, can you just put out good content that is just, you're constantly helping me. So by golly, I know, like, and trust. Like I really like this person that they may not be the slickest, best presenter. They might have this, but they just keep on showing up consistently and helping me. So I'm bonding with you. So I'm going to give you money when it comes. And then the last one I can remember off the top of my head is what I call this 10-star experience. Like we all know what a 5-star experience is. How can you give somebody such an outrageously good customer experience that they're going to talk about you to their friends? Zappos, perfect example, right? Their customer experience, people will rave and talk about it just because of that. Amazon is the easiest company in the world to return stuff with if you're not happy. So they're a singular focus on that. Now they also happen to have like the lowest prices, the most convenient, hard to do, but it's not that hard to give somebody a 10-star customer experience when most people, customer service is the last thing they hire. Like, oh, let's just hire a bunch of cheap overseas labor to do customer service and not think about it. But if you ever work with a company who's got great customer service, like, God, this is worth everything.
Well, that's what we talk about all the time with our customer experience. It's like when you look at it, like most people think of a customer journey, and it's super interesting. They say customer journey, but when you look at most people's customer journey, it stops at the sale.
Yeah.
Like the customer journey, like really begins at the sale. Like up until that point, they weren't a customer, right? Yeah. They're just someone who's watching from the outside. The minute they give you money, like you should be trying to figure out how do we move them along this journey so they go from someone who's just curious to potentially maybe using it to completely adopting it to becoming an advocate.
Yep.
Like, and that should be a systematized process that you work on. And I would say right now in today's world with the way it is, the way you win in business is by having a unique experience beyond the purchase of the product, service, whatever it is. Because
especially if you're not just a one-stop, like buy it once, and if you're buy it once and move on, maybe. But that's no way to grow a business.
Exactly, because the reality is that if you just give them what they pay for, it's not enough. Yep. And you think it should be, but it's not.
No, it's like a one-night stand, right? It's like, you meet the girl in the bar, you do
the bar tricks.
You do the bar tricks.
He does have that skill.
Yeah. You do all the bar tricks. The girl's swooning over you. You tell her about all the cool stuff. You make her really like you. She agrees to go home with you. You have a one-night stand, and then you never call her again. It's like, wait a minute, like, come on, like, there's more to this, and that's what, unfortunately, a lot of people I think treat their customers like is like a one-night stand. Thanks for the money. I got to go get more. I got to go put more in there, as opposed to treating those customers as real customers. That's a great analogy too.
Yeah, I just think it's something right now everybody could look at, and they spend all this time on sales and marketing and things like that. Very few people are figuring out, like, okay, once someone's given us their money, how do we make it so they just want to give us more? And the examples are out there when you look at Disney, when you look at these things, and I think that's the hard part is like it's a lot of work to have a business, regardless of what business it is. And, the ones that are winning, when you actually look at it, like they've either chosen a lifestyle business and they've kept it at a certain amount, like they make a certain amount of money, but they've realized that that's the cap, right? And they could make more money, but they choose not to because it will create more headaches.
Stress,
And
frankly, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm a lifestyle guy. But I've gone this way. Like I started off as a lifestyle guy, and then I was like, no, let's scale this. And then I was like, this sucks. So I'm back to like lifestyle to a large degree.
We both done that too.
Yeah.
We both done where we making enough money. It's like, I'll just keep making this much money every month. We live pretty great. It's awesome. And we're like, we need to grow it. And then we grow it and we're like, shoot, this is really hard.
Why did I
way
do
more work?
this?
Now I can't do any of the fun things.
Well, the hard part about growth is that everybody just thinks it's going to be linear.
No.
Right? We just, it's like if you're training periodization, we just add 5 pounds a week to the bar. How long are you going to add 5 pounds a week to the bar?
Apparently, until you hit like 1,000.
Well, but that's not how it worked, right? And so that's like with business, like when you decide to scale, you also have to realize there's probably going to be a period of like very low cash flow because like you're technically investing for the future. Yep. But the problem is if you're a lifestyle type person, all of a sudden you need to put that money back into the company in order to get through, and that it might take years to do that. So it's a level of commitment, and neither one's right or wrong. Everybody's cut differently. Some people, that's their thing. They come in, they take a company over at that point, right? Versus they don't want to build it. They just want to take it over when it gets to that growth point. So it's very interesting.
I think my thing is one thing I'm really good at is I know how to enjoy my life. Like I'm very good at when I'm not working, I have I know what I'm going to do, what I'm going to enjoy. And that is my priority. Like I've got, my wife and I have a great relationship. We like to travel. We like to do things. We like to not be completely stressed out. We've got enough money to where we're not worried about stuff. I wouldn't consider myself wealthy by my standards. I mean, some people may consider myself wealthy by, their standards. Everything's relative. But I'm at that point where I know myself, right? It's like, I know that more is not necessarily more, especially if I have to give up too much of the things I enjoy. And then so I kind of went back to my investment roots and I said, well, you don't have to get rich from the business. And by the way, I may rabbit trail around here. One of my other favorite books, a lot of epiphanies, was Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco, if you guys have read that. But he talks about how most people get rich off of an exit event, right? They don't get rich through the process. It's an event that happens. One of the epiphanies and the quotes that I had that I loved was, he goes, people think that get rich quick doesn't exist. He goes, they're confusing it with its evil cousin, get rich easy. Get rich quick does exist. You have to redefine what quick means. And this was my epiphany. He said, let's say you start a business and you bust your butt at it for 5 years and then you sell it for $5 million, $10 million, whatever. It's possible. It doesn't happen all that often, but it's possible. Did you get rich quick? If you made that $10 million, did you get rich quick? Well, you didn't get rich overnight, and it wasn't easy, but 5 years versus 40 years, that's actually pretty quick. So if you redefine what quick is, but that happened, he's like, through an exit event. So you have to build a business that has a sellable, exitable value, and then that's where you get the big paycheck. And for the longest time, I was chasing that. And I've had a couple of small exits, and I was like, oh, yeah, it is fun to get several $100,000. I've never had a 7-figure exit, but it's fun to get that. But then I also realized that through proper management of your cash flow, if you have a profitable business, even if you're a consultant, and you put that into the right investment vehicles, right other things, that you may not get that big exit event, but you can exit your business quicker or have a lot less stress, because my business doesn't have to work out as well if my investments are doing well. So that's where I kind of, in the past several years, I went back to my investment roots and started investing in companies, both private, public, Bitcoin, things like that, to go, all right, let's just shepherd this cash over here, as opposed to just dumping it into a business that I don't necessarily want to grow my business to the point where it's unmanageable.
Right.
Because I don't like running businesses.
You don't want to have employees and deal with them on a daily basis, right?
Like I don't like raising the babies.
But it's interesting you say that. I don't know
We
about
all like making the babies.
I don't know about you, Sarah, but the difference between my 20s and 30s when it comes to how much money I made was going from essentially being a gambler, right, and everything was going to be the home run, and having a few home runs, but realizing you don't win the game with a home run, right? To in my 30s being like, and most of that was the transition when I had children, and suddenly realizing that, like, if I did die tomorrow, who takes care of them for the next 20 years, right? And okay, then, well, how much money would I need to have if I die tomorrow for them, so that they could live exactly how we live now? Not better, not worse, but exactly how we live now until they're out of the house. And when you calculate that number, adjust it for inflation, you realize, like, what you're trying to do is not going to get you there right now. And so while you still can take the risks, you also have to have some kind of, not safety net, but you have to have some kind of plan that, like, if this doesn't work out, because it's not just about you anymore. You've got, I got my wife, I got my children. It's about them, and, like, my dreams shouldn't then affect their life, because, like, I got hit by a car or something. Something bad happens, and then they suffer for that.
I'd actually feel bad for the car. But.
Right, but they but they suffer for that. So, like, that shifted my mindset to, okay, like, I have to start understanding investment strategies and building, insurance and, like, the bank of you and things like that. And then when you do that, something interesting happened to me. And again, I love you guys' like own experiences, but it fundamentally shifted me from ever being in the scarcity mindset. Because no matter what, I have all this stuff over here. So, like, it actually has taken away some of that, some of those poor decisions to make quick money because of the safety.
That's the key.
There.
That's what so many people like. Unfortunately, this is easier to say than to do, but it's the first. It kind of goes back to what Roger Hamilton talked about too, is getting out of that survival mode. But you got to get that foundation, because if you remove the dangers, and there's a difference between fear and danger, right? Fear is a perception that something imaginary may happen. And danger is, I know there's danger, right? You're in foreclosure, or something is happening. I've got these bills coming up. I might be homeless because of X. But the minute you remove that stuff, the pressure just disappears, and it allows you to be more creative. It allows you to get paid to create the things you want to create and not the things you have to create. It's what keeps you from having to chase the shiny objects. It's what keeps you from having to come out with a sleazy biz op offer that will sell, but it won't deliver. It's what allows you to operate ethically and patiently so that you can build the right thing for you. And like, just not having that danger in the back is so, I think it's everything, right? Everybody wants the big prize, but really the big prize to me is peace of mind. Because so many people don't have it. And especially, and we all know people exactly like this. They make a lot of money, or they've made a lot of money, and yet they're still, there's that financial danger there. They're one move away from losing it all or having it all fall apart because it's built on a house of cards.
We see that a lot with athletes, right? Especially
Yes.
in the fighting world right now.
Huge.
You know, when they should retire, because look, like fighting is not a regular sport. Like you're getting punched in the face, like you're doing damage to you, like serious damage to your body. To have to be in your 50s, still having to have a fight to make make the money for the year or whatever. Like at some point, you're not going to be able to step in the ring anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's the scary part, right? And so, obviously that's a very physical example, but it's metaphorically, it's the same thing for an individual.
Yeah, to me, peace of mind is the ultimate flex of success. It's like I'm unaffected, right?
Well, I think we're always supposed to be driven to achieve something as human beings. We had a client back in the day. He invented silly string.
Nice.
So he got this super big payoff, and then he acquired a wife who may or may not have liked him that much. And he was just the most miserable guy I've ever seen because he had nothing he wanted to achieve. He's a little older. He's like, he's got nothing going for him. He's got enough money, and he's like, I don't even know what to do with myself anymore. It was really disappointing to see, whereas we're trying to grow stuff, and it's amazing how fast you get to that. I want to make $500,000. And when you get there, you're like, I just want to make $1 million.
Yeah.
It's amazing how it moves once you've gotten
Yeah,
there
they call
too.
that. There's a name for that too.
Really?
It's called hedonic adaptation. So you know what hedonism means? Hedonism is like just the pursuit of pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, so hedonic adaptation is when that thing that was pleasurable becomes your new normal, and then you've adapted, and now it's no longer fun, right? Like the sports car, you buy the fancy sports car. And I did this. I had a beautiful Audi R8 for a while. It was so much fun to drive, but then after about a year, you're like, I'm just driving an Audi. I'm driving down the road. It's like whatever.
I'm about to sell my Bentley because we moved to the country.
Yeah.
We got one of these converted vans to go on day trips and adventures. And we got on a full electric vehicle because we're driving so far to go places. So I'm not really driving it. It's just sitting there, and I'm going, man, like we just don't need it.
It's fun to get in.
Yeah, like we're just not. I mean, I'm driving it like once every 3 weeks.
Yeah, you don't feel as.
I love mine. I drive mine for years. Had mine one for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
But it's like
They're still fun. I still always loved it, but it's never. What I'm saying is, it's never as cool as the first time you get.
Oh yeah, it just becomes your normal.
It becomes your normal, and then you kind of want to upgrade, right? It's like it's just one of those
McLaren's
things.
coming.
Yeah.
Well, it was a video that I saw one time, and it's like the guy is walking, and someone goes past him. It starts raining. Someone goes past him on a skateboard, and he's like, and then the skateboard looks at the bicyclist. The bicyclist looks at the motorcycle. The motorcycle looks at the car.
Yeah.
The car looks at the nicer car, and then it looks over at a boat, like a yacht, and then the yacht looks up at a helicopter, and the helicopter looks at a private jet, and then the last thing is like a rocket ship taking off, right? It's like perspective, like depending on where you are, your perspective
is
right?
everything. And you mentioned something else about we need something to achieve, and I do agree, especially like people like ourselves. Not everybody, but like we're built different, right? But people like ourselves, probably the people tuning into this, are different. And there's that interesting area of like we all want to hit it big and walk away with $100 million, exit, like mic drop, I'm out. See ya. Bye, Felicia. But we don't really, because I think having that, you're having enough success to where you can do what you want. You've got some time freedom, but you're not quite there. So you're still
What else can you
ambitious
do?
to struggle, and that you want to create more. Like, because I do worry about if I actually don't worry. This doesn't keep me up at night, but if I ever had a big windfall, how lazy would I be and for how long? And then would I be really driven?
Where would you put your bunker?
Where would I put my bunker? Right, exactly. I'd be buying that. But I like not having everything I want because it engages the creative parts of my mind to go get that next thing.
Well, I've tricked myself into that, right? So all the investments and everything, like all of that stuff, so all automatic, right?
Yeah.
So it all goes out of the bank account. So
you
when I
always
look
feel
at
broke.
the bank account, I'm like, I have no money.
Yeah.
And I never account for all of the assets and all of the value and all of the, like, how Forbes does their list, like, and they say, oh, Elon Musk is the richest guy in the world. And Elon's going, I don't have that kind of money,
Yeah.
right? It's all on paper, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Well, net worth is a mystery.
I heard
What
Grant
mean.
Cardone talking about that too. He goes, at the end of every year, I'm broke. I'm starting over because he's just dumping it back.
But it's the only way. Like comfort is a killer.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
comfort is a killer, and the only way to get out of that is to create some kind of like scenario, whether it's real or not real, but you respond to in order to be motivated.
In the
Like,
short term, it
yeah.
motivates you because you look in your bank account, you say, I got $5,000 in there. I'm broke. But then, for a lot of people, like only $5,000
rough.
is a lot of money. But for some people, it's like, oh man, I'm not.
Anyone here in California?
It's nothing. But right. But yeah, if you know, like in the short term, that motivates you. I gotta get some cash coming in. But if you know, okay, I got a $1 million policy over here, or like investment fund, I'm good. It's just not as liquid. It was kind of funny too. So I did experience a little version of this too. So I was very involved in the crypto investing, and I thought I was brilliant because I got involved earlier in this last round than most people did. And I was, over the course of about a year and a half, I was up like $1 million in profit. And I was beating my chest. Look at me,
awesome.
Woohoo! This is fun. And then now that money's gone, right? And plus some capital, plus some principal. Mm-hmm. But I remember my motivation level was, I mean, $1 million is a lot of money in a year, but it wasn't like so much money I can just like flip the bird to the world and retire. But I noticed how much my motivation went down, and my creativity went down, and everything else. And then when that disappeared, I mean, sucked. There were a handful of tears, but it forced me back into work, and it forced me back into being creative and to get back at it. And I just had to tell myself what, I think we all know, remember Sean Stevenson, but his famous words, his was his last words, but he lived by this, is this didn't happen for me, to me, it happened for me. So I asked myself, why did this happen for me? And it was just like, well, because you're lazy, you're intrinsically lazy, and the universe does not want you to be, you're not done yet.
That was too easy.
Yeah, that was too easy. You ain't done yet. Get back to work. I was like, all right. And that's happened several times where I've lost everything because I'm kind of a gambler. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, well, I guess the reason it happened for me is because I ain't done. Because I do wonder, if you throw a bunch of money in my pocket, I'm going to be done for a while, at least. Maybe
God,
a year.
I couldn't sit still. If I had, so every time I pay the IRS, I definitely cry a little. And then my bank is super low and I feel really broke for a while.
Yeah.
Just my bank gets paid enough, I got to pay the IRS again.
Yeah.
But no, I think if I had, on my days off, I'm still creating. I'm doing art with the kids. Yep. I'm creating relationships, or we're doing the garden, and we're spending money every day. We're not working. So really, we should be working more, because otherwise we'll spend whatever we've made.
Yep.
Well, and that's why you see Walmart greeters in their 80s, because they never accounted for the fact that when they do retire, that you're actually probably going to spend more money. So that's the problem when you get a bunch of money, and these guys who win the lottery and stuff like that, like they go spend it and then they're like, oh, I don't have any more money. And so now what do I do? And you have to go back to work. So I think you find that balance. And Ryan Stewman, my friend, he said that like the reason he stays so motivated is because he just drains the accounts every month. Yeah. And by draining the accounts and putting them into investments that he like are not easy to liquidate, like it creates that pressure. But it's a game. But
that's the way to do it. And so he's doing it the smart way, which is put them into investments. Don't drain the account with stuff.
Gambling or crypto.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Right. Like
buy bar trick books.
Right. But you can go buy the car.
Businesses.
But you can go buy the cars and the watches and all that other stuff, and that's a way to drain the account, and it's completely empty. It's fun but empty. But draining the account into like illiquid but good investments, that's the best way to do it, because you're faking this desperate motivation. Speaking of money and whatnot, there was another book I read about a year ago, and it really was eye-opening. It's called Die with Zero. And it's a fascinating book written by this guy who's a multimillionaire investment trader. And he goes, this is an impossible goal. It's an impossible goal, but like a worthwhile pursuit. But he says, most of us are trying to optimize for wealth. He goes, I'm going to show you how to optimize for happiness. But it's different than the YOLO mentality of just live every day like it's your last and spend, because the one thing we don't know is when we're going to die, and nobody wants to outlive their money. So he shows you how to build a financial strategy for your life to where the goal is to run out of money when you die without running out of money before you die, right? And he shows you how to structure certain things so that they're at least always paying you a certain amount, like no matter what. So you have that thing, but then the rest of your money, a couple of the key concepts that he talks about is he goes, understand that there are many deaths that we have. So there was a big portion of your life was competitive bodybuilding. And I'm assuming you're not competing bodybuilding right now, or maybe you are?
No, I'm back to powerlifting.
Powerlifting.
But part of my life, that was the only thing that mattered.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, but you're probably not going to, I don't know if maybe you're going to try to break another world record, but probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
Get strong.
So that part of your life is dead. That's dead, and that's okay. There'll be like if you're a big skier or snowboarder, there'll be a time where you've skied your last thing, and that's fine. But he goes, actually take a time to look at the things you like to do and the things you're doing, and put like the age range that I'm probably going to do this is this. Like there was the last day I stepped into a nightclub, to go clubbing, right? Was it your 20s or early 30s or something like that? But then we all kind of grew out of that. And then there's a last time you're going to do this. But he goes, plan for these mini deaths. Most people just save and put off the things they want to do until they're retired. And now they don't have the energy or the ability. Let's say they want to go travel around Europe. Well, they retire when they're 70 and then their body's broken down and they don't have the ability.
Well, they're too bougie and it's like they have to go stay in 5-star hotels. So like, well, we can't afford this.
Yeah.
Because now they're older and they're not going to put up like when you're in your 20s, like
70-year-olds
they go
in a hostel,
backpacking.
non-existent.
Hostel. They just stay in a hostel. They don't care. Like $20 here you go. Like as long as there's a plank for me to sleep on.
And then they miss out on a whole aspect of the experience that they would have enjoyed at the time when they had it. But it was a really great book on getting certain perspectives on different time periods of your life. And one of the other things I liked is he said, this is, by the way, this is not for broke people. This is for people who are high income earners. But he said, nobody that I know of decides when their peak wealth is. He goes, you should. Let's just say you're worth $5 million, right? And you're age 60. At that point, you might decide, this is the most money. I'm at my peak. I'm going to start drawing it down on stuff. But decide when your peak is, because if you know, these are the things I kind of want to do in the next part of my life, and this is approximately how much it'll cost, and this is how much I'll live, you might realize that, oh man, I got a lot left over. Well, instead of giving money to your kids when you die, like how much money can I give to my kids when I die? Decide.
11 million.
Right, exactly. But decide.
Is the IRS limit.
Oh yeah, exactly, right? But then he goes, I've decided that I'm going to give my kids their inheritance when they're alive, but they ain't getting all of daddy's money. An example would be, he goes, my kids are, I think, in their early 20s. By the time they're 30, when they're past the getting spoiled age or whatever, I'll give them each, I don't remember what it was, $100,000 each. I'm going to fund your business. I'm going to buy you a house. I'm going to do this. There's your inheritance. I'm going to get to see you enjoy it, and that's all you guys are getting. If there's leftover, you can have it, but don't plan on it. Daddy's spending it. So they get set up in life.
That's what I have for my kids too.
Yeah.
And milestones that I get to give it to them.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that.
They don't get it till they're like 40.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not creating lazy kids.
Yeah.
So they can know they're going to get money.
Anytime.
They're going to get money someday, but they got until 40. Because I figured by 40, if they haven't figured it out, they need some help.
Yeah.
It
could be investing in their business.
Yes.
It could be buying them a house.
Down payment on a house or
doing something of that nature. Don't necessarily just give them money and say, here, go.
Those
go,
things are, I
go
think those
rampant.
things are awesome. Yeah.
Right. But then he goes, now if you know, okay, I've taken care of my kids. I've taken care, let's say you've got an annuity that's guaranteed to pay you out, I'm making this up, $150,000 a year. Like, oh, I can live on that. Like, not necessarily the way I want, but I can live on that, especially when you're older. Okay, now I've got $4.5 million. Now it's time to start drawing it down. I'm going to do the things I want to do. And anyway, I could go on for a long time about this book. It made a big impact on me and the way I look at things. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So there will be a time where I choose, this is my peak wealth. These are the things I want to do at this time in my life. And I may not be doing these for too long.
I imagine it allows you to make decisions easier too, based on where you're at. Like you might have said yes 10 years ago, 5 years ago to a project, but now based on like where you are, you're like, well, that doesn't fit what I'm trying to do, so no. Because
the budget, AJ.
Yes, it's not in my emotional budget.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
cool. Any other questions you want to ask?
Oh man, that has been fun though.
Yeah, it has.
Brad, where can people go to find more about you and everything you're up to?
The easiest is bradcostanzo.com. There you can get a link to Bacon Wrapped Business podcast.
Do you have bacon on every podcast?
No.
Do you don't eat bacon
I should
on
be
every
crunching
well,
it.
We need the whole
now I
studio
don't wanna
bacon.
see it.
Whole studio bacon.
I know. I do have like the intro of it has the sound of sizzling bacon. It's like shh, and then it goes in.
I would like bacon
sizzling
right
secrets,
here,
that's why.
right now.
You know that the subtitle is Sizzling Hot Business Advice Guaranteed to Make You Fat. Profits.
Just want the fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Fine. If I come on your podcast, there better be bacon.
Yes, but it's a
Very cool.
Yeah, so bradcostanzo.com, they can get me. And if they want to email me, brad@bradcostanzo.com. So.
Perfect. Well, it's been a pleasure having you.
Been a pleasure.
Guys, if you enjoyed this show, make sure you like, subscribe, leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you on the next episode.
I just have to tell you about Kartra, the marketing platform that has seriously transformed my business. You know how running a business can be insanely time consuming, right? Well, Kartra has been a game changer for me. It's honestly like having an entire marketing team in my pocket. And what I love most is that it automates all the tedious daily tasks for me, from marketing to sales to even customer experience. I can't believe how much time and energy I've saved since I started using it. And get this. With Kartra, I can create websites, funnels, courses, membership sites, email campaigns, calendars, surveys, you name it. It's made managing my business so much simpler and more affordable. Honestly, I can't recommend Kartra enough. If you're curious, head to paidcreatepodcast.com/Kartra to start your trial. Trust me, you won't regret it.